on set. The banking world getting a lot of attention in the French press today, starting with the left-leaning newspaper Libération.
That's right. Libération calls it la chasse aux banksters, the hunt for banksters, so banker and gangsters. And Stuart, I think you made it onto the cover of Libération there.
Florence is convinced it looks like me.
I think it does.
Nothing.
Just put the little mask on and we'll see. Anyway, this cover comes after the two most recent scandals that have been getting a lot of attention in the press. Barclays for manipulating interest rates, HSBC, we've been hearing this morning, for money laundering. Now, inside, Libération says that this is a dose of reality for bankers. It says these recent investigations could signal the beginning to the end of a certain impunity that has continued despite promises made by banks during the crisis that they would change their ways and take the straight and narrow. But we'll see what Libération has to say about that in the coming days.
Another economic story is PSA. This is Peugeot Citroën, continuing to get a lot of press today. This is after they announced they're shutting down a historic site and making massive layoffs.
That's right. Now, the CEO of PSA, Philippe Varin, is scheduled to meet with President François Hollande today, and that's likely to be a heated meeting because during an interview that Hollande gave on Bastille Day, he said that PSA's plan as it is unacceptable. Now, Le Monde has an interview with Varin where he says that closing this historic site in Aulnay is non-negotiable. He says that PSA studied all the alternatives, and this is the only outcome that's possible. And he says that PSA is paying the price for being what he calls, quote, a loyal citizen, for its economic patriotism, and that's to say for keeping the bulk of its production here in France.
Now, the communist paper L'Humanité, they're saying the government doesn't have its back against the wall and shouldn't give in to PSA.
That's right. L'Humanité says l'État n'est pas désarmé. The government is not unarmed. It does have room for maneuver, and it shouldn't give up this fight. And it has an interesting article inside where it points out that this is a problem for Europe as a whole, and it has a map which looks at the countries that are hardest hit, so Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Spain, and Cyprus. And according to L'Humanité, this is due to deep structural problems within Europe's auto industry, but also due to these widespread austerity measures which have affected people's purchasing power and therefore led to people to buy fewer cars.
And another economic story, this is about tax reform here in France.
Tax reform, it's being debated right now in Parliament. Now, we're going to take a look at the front paper of Les Echos, the business daily, which says that ESF, so that's France's wealth tax, is going to be a heavy bid for France's wealthy. Now, this is different from another tax that's been debated about taxing high earners, 75%. This concerns people's capital and property. And according to Les Echos, 10% of France's wealthy citizens could see their tax on their wealth be doubled. Now, another Le Parisien points out that one tax, however, that's not likely to be debated is one on members of Parliament's allowance. They get an allowance every month that's about 6,500 euros to cover various expenses. And this allowance is not at all taxed, and it's hardly controlled at all. And there's one member of Parliament, Charles de Courson, who's been fighting for 15 years to have this allowance be taxed and at least monitored in some way, but his proposals keep getting shut down.
Okay, and finally, another debate which keeps coming up in the French newspapers. It's come up again. This is legalising euthanasia.
That's right. Now, this was one of François Hollande's campaign promises, and here it is on Le Figaro. Hollande relance le débat. He's reopened the euthanasia debate. He's going to put together a team of experts that are going to study the matter and organize about 5 public debates. And in their editorial, Le Figaro wonders if this is necessary, because when talking about euthanasia, it's just such a loaded question. In fact, Hollande himself is very careful about the terms he uses. He talks about wanting to give people a right to live until the end in dignity. And Le Figaro says, well, how could anybody be against this? But what does living until the end in dignity actually mean? And according to Le Figaro, what all this is really about is suffering, and suffering is taboo in our society, says Le Figaro. But they say that there is one, already a remedy to suffering, which is palliative care. And according to Le Figaro, France has a good system for about 10 years, and that is what the government should focus on. It's what it should develop, and it's what it should invest in.
Francois Monod with the French newspapers. Thanks very much. Now, here's the headlines on France 24. Syria's rebels